Hello and welcome to YearOfHitchcockMovies.com. We are your hosts, Jeff and Diane, and this is movie number 20, Mr. and Mrs. Smith from 1941. And tonight, Alfred Hitchcock directs a screwball comedy. During the filming of Foreign Correspondent, David L. Selznick was figuring out other studios he could loan out Alfred Hitchcock to. Again, like we talked about in last week's movie video, he knew he wasn't going to be able to control Alfred Hitchcock the way he wanted, and felt it was best to have him make these movies somewhere else. And it must be pointed out that David L. Selznick was making a lot of money loaning Hitchcock out, especially after the success of Rebecca and Foreign Correspondent. He was making tons of money for doing nothing, basically, for loaning Alfred Hitchcock out to these other studios. So just like that, he reached an agreement with RKO Pictures for a 2-movie deal to be begun in the beginning of 1941, and to do 2 movies in 1941, our movie tonight, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and what will be next week's movie, Suspicion. Yeah, so with the Hitchcocks adjusting to life in California, you know, they left their lives behind, they left their friends behind, they left everything behind. They had to make some new friends, and certainly early on, someone Alfred Hitchcock got along with really, really well was Carole Lombard, herself a very famous and very successful actress at the time. Kitty cameo. She was making great movies, one year making tons and tons of money and being very successful in these screwball comedies. She was actually married to Clark Gable at the time, who was acting in Gone with the Wind. In fact, the Hitchcocks were renting her house. They were such good friends that one day Alfred said he was hoping to live in the Bel Air area, and she said, "Great, you're going to rent my house." So they spent a lot of time together. They all got along. They used to tell dirty jokes and drink a bottle of booze and have lots of fun. He regarded Carole Lombard very highly. He relished the thought of directing her in a movie, and she asked him, and he said yes. And they made this movie. So much like the Lady Vanishes, he was handed a virtually completed script, and he himself has said he merely just filmed it as written. It was written by Norman Krasna, who wrote a lot of screwball comedies in the 30s and wrote a lot of other movies. Among other things, he wrote the screenplay to White Christmas. So that's interesting. He wrote this one, and yeah, basically they just filmed it as is, so that's no fun for us. So who's in this picture? Well, Carole Lombard, obviously. She plays Mrs. Smith in the Mr. and Mrs. Smith. They wanted to get Cary Grant to play Mr. Smith, but he was busy. They'll get him next week for next week's movie, Suspicion. So instead, they got someone who was also very big at the time, Robert Montgomery, to play Mr. Smith. We know Robert Montgomery from the movie Here Comes Mr. Jordan, which was remade as Heaven Can Wait in the late 70s with Warren Beatty. Well, Robert Montgomery plays the angel, or whatever you want to call him. He's not an angel. And he's very good in that. So it'll be interesting. We haven't seen Mr. and Mrs. Smith for a long time. 6 months. We haven't seen it in a long time, so it'll be fun for us to see it. Also in this movie was a very big 30s matinee idol named Gene Raymond, so look for him if you're a big 30s matinee idol person. So, and you know, it must be said that Hitchcock, you know, we're not new to comedy. Certainly The Farmer's Wife was a straight comedy. I'm not sure how many people found that funny, but she chuckled, I chuckled, and lots of funny bits, and even the serious movies. So Hitchcock's certainly no stranger to comedy. And certainly, I think with London and England being bombarded daily by the Germans, I think Alfred Hitchcock needed something to take his mind off it. It's my understanding that he was sick with worry, as were a lot of people who had friends and family in England at the time. So why not do something that has nothing to do with that to get your mind off it? So. And really, how do you follow the success of Foreign Correspondent and Rebecca? I mean, how do you follow a year where you get 17 Oscar nominations for 2 movies? You don't even bother. You do something like this. You get it under budget. You do it quick. You show that you're versatile, and that's what he did. So lucky us, we get to see this. So now there is a cameo in this one, but it's really hard to spot. So we're going to tell you where it is, And if you don't want to know, then just you're not going to spot it. But well, the version we're going to watch, it's at 42 minutes and 50 seconds, and basically he's, if you see a building in the dark, he's a man walking across the screen. That's him, and apparently Carole Lombard directed him in that. So they had a lot of fun making this movie because they were such good friends. Lots of teasing going on, lots of good nature ribbing, and I guess we'll see if that transpired into the film. So very good. There you go. So let's watch this one from 1941, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Let's watch.